Wellington Realty, with 9 offices, including Cumberland, Maryland, and Bedford, Pennsylvania. Broker Adam Conrad is licensed in Maryland, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania, and he owns Advanced Academy, a real estate school. He can help you with home buying and selling questions. We'll be discussing mortgages and all things real estate with you for the next 30 minutes. Ask the Realtor on 1270 AM WCBC.
And a very pleasant good afternoon, everybody. Paul Mullen here along with Adam Conrad on Ask the Realtor here on WCBC. And Adam, you have me on camera today.
I do, Paul. I decided, I dreamed up this idea this morning, maybe it was this morning, maybe it was yesterday morning, and I said something to Dick about maybe I could video record our session and then post it online. And he was game for that. I really appreciate the, working with me, my harebrained ideas that I come up with.
Wow.
But we're videotaping. I should say we have a webcam. It's very high tech.
Yeah.
It's a webcam, and we just have it recording in the studio and picking up some audio. Hopefully it works out okay.
I think it's going to be okay if they can get over what I look like.
Yeah, that's the only thing I've always said. I have a face for radio personally. Yeah, so
the old radio face and headphone hair is what we used to complain about. Hey, we're going to talk about how to pick an agent today.
We are.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
you were busy with the camera and everything, and I kind of pulled this one out of the hat.
There you go. So how to pick an agent? Wow, that's we only have half an hour, Paul.
Right. Yeah. It takes a while.
Well, yeah, because I think when you talk about picking an agent, I think you really have to be able to pick somebody that you can work with over a long period of time. I mean, you're really going to be tied to this person for quite some time. So there's some tips in there, I'm sure.
Yeah, I guess if you get a bad vibe up front, that's probably a good indication that this might not be the person you want to go with.
Right. It's kind of like picking a mate. You really want to pick somebody that you're going to be spending some time with this person, and it's maybe it's something you want to even talk about interviewing, and we got a lot of different things we can talk about picking an agent. But there's no question that this person is going to guide you through one of the most difficult periods of your life. Choosing a home. I mean, if you're picking an agent as a buyer, and a lot of buyers don't ever think of picking their agent, which is a whole other discussion. But as a buyer, this person is going to help usher you through a very difficult, very emotional. It's a roller coaster ride to go through the purchase of a home.
It sounds like you're picking a baby doctor.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and then and if you're a seller, picking an agent is, again, very critical, because the person that you pick is largely going to help determine your success in selling your home. And I'm sure there's a lot of folks go through a lot of frustrating times in the selling of their home. So that, again, it's picking somebody is going to be very crucial.
Yeah, and I guess it would be a little bit along the lines of when you're talking about how people will, if they need a lawyer, they want to pick the big gun.
Right,
right. The best guy or the best woman that can represent you. But that's, number one, not always possible, both schedule-wise and also money-wise. But it's also not possible sometimes because you just can't get to them.
Right. Well, speaking of picking a lawyer, I had somebody once tell me, I have to share this anecdote, that when it comes time to pick a lawyer, said if somebody picks on you and you wind up getting into a situation where you need an attorney, somebody hires an attorney and now you've got to deal with this. Somebody, basically they made it akin to a street fight. So if somebody pulls a knife on you, you don't pull a bigger knife, you pull out a nuclear warhead, right? So the argument there is that pick somebody that's going to really scare the daylights out of the other side. But in real estate, it's really not that. Real estate, you need to pick somebody that has expertise. And I was talking with somebody on the way down here today. It's interesting. Don't confuse expertise with experience. Mm-hmm. Just because you've been doing something for a long time doesn't make you an expert at it.
No. And plus, we've talked about how the business has changed.
Right.
You may have been an expert 15 years ago, but right now you might be maybe middle of the pack.
Well, yeah, when you consider, I don't know, how old's Facebook? It's not, is it 10 years old even? I mean, so literally the skills you learned 30 years ago as an agent, there's certainly relevant parts to that, but there's a lot of things that you need to know today that are crucial to the real estate transaction. And speed is one of them. We get into a lot of deals. If you can't get your your offer in and submitted in very fast, on a very fast track, a lot of times you lose out on hot opportunities. So that's, again, another example where the technology really wins the day.
Yeah, and if you, I guess you have to be always on top of your game.
You really do.
You can't rest on the laurels.
No, you really can't. I mean, it's great, if you get somebody, and a lot of folks will pick an agent based on and say, hey, this agent's got a lot of listings. But there's what we call the blessing and the curse. The silver lining in every cloud, Paul. I mean, if somebody's got a lot of listings, let's say an agent's got 60 listings, and you say, I'm going to pick that agent because they've got a lot of listings. Well, now you're number 61. How much time can that agent devote? And again, when I say these things, I'm not disparaging any agent. I'm just giving you some contrast to what may be some conventional thinking about picking an agent. And one of the things that's very important if you list homes is to give clients a regular update on the activity of the home and strategy plans for the future. Well, what can we do next based on what's occurred so far? And if you figure that takes, 10 minutes per client per week, do the math, Paul.
Yeah.
That agent's going to have a heck of a time keeping up with all of that activity.
Well, there might be a fast food place in town that you really like, but you never want to go there when the line is out of the parking lot because you're going to get really hungry by the time you get service.
I have no idea what place you might be talking about.
Well, it depends. Some could happen on a daily basis. Some they go by the wayside, but yeah, you got to get the service out there and got to be on the make sure that you're on the receiving end of service up front.
Right.
Can you get that guarantee? Can you get can you make sure that you're going to get the attention that you deserve? I guess that's where I'm at. If I'm putting a house up, I want to know that I can talk to the guy or the lady that is working for me.
Absolutely. One thing I used to, when we were first starting out and we were breaking into new areas with the agents, I would train the agents to pick a development, for example, that's, maybe we have a development in one market. I used to call it the land of Muldoon and Nardone because those were the two agents that had most of the listings in that area. And I say that with with the best of intentions in mind. And I said to my agents, I said, look, if you want to change this from their land to your land, you've got to go in, you've got to basically break some ground in that territory. And one of the ways I told them to do that, I say, look, if you've got an agent who, quote, owns, I can use the air quotes because people see them on video now, quote, owns a particular development, that's great. They know that development real well, but they've got a little challenge too. And that's that agent has a bunch of other properties listed by other sellers. So when they get that next property, well, whose property do they sell, right? If they're approached by a buyer and the buyer says, hey, I'm looking at 123 Main Street and they've got 123, 125, and 127 Main Street listed, what do? Do they show the others or do they just show yours?
I don't think they get a coin out and toss it, do they?
No, I think it's an interesting thing to consider, given that, a lot of listings in an area may or may not be exactly what you think might be an advantage.
Everybody has a calling card as to what they do best for you.
Absolutely.
How do you weigh that?
I think what you got to look at is, it's a good idea, first of all, to interview as many agents as possible. Statistically speaking, National Association of Realtors say that and this is interesting, maybe I'll pose a question to you. How many agents on average to list a home do you think people, did I ask you this before?
I think
I may have talked about this before.
Didn't we come up with that 3-dog night title, one is the loneliest number?
Right. I think we did talk about this before. So the number of agents that a client typically interviews to list their home is how many?
One.
It's one.
Yeah.
It's amazing how skewed it is, and the number who, I forget what the number is exactly. It's something like 65 to 70% of people just talk to one agent, and then the balance talk to two, and then when it goes to 3 agents, it's almost 0. I mean, it's a very small number.
So you're telling me basically a lot of this happens on reputation.
Reputation or recommendation.
Yeah.
Most people find an agent through a referral or recommendation. But I think it's critical to talk to a few.
Yeah.
And really, run a little dog and pony show and say, explain to me, I'll sit back, and just tell me why I should have you as my agent represent this home or market this home. And
well, if you had a position available in your office,
mm-hmm.
would you take the first applicant?
No, I learned
or
a long
would you
time
go
ago,
through?
Paul,
most of us go through the process. If
Right.
we're hiring somebody,
mm-hmm.
you post it. There's a job available. You see who shows up. You go through the resumes a little bit, and people don't do that when they come down to a $200,000 house. Right?
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
One thing I learned in my career is a little phrase: hire slowly and fire quickly. And so most people do it the opposite. They hire quickly and then they wind up with somebody that they wind up not, getting rid of if it's not a good fit. And I think in picking an agent, I think is a good example of, take your time, interview a couple. Certainly, I've got a horse in this race because I want you to interview our agents. I want you to invite us in. And so, shameless plug, since you're listening to our show, is invite the Perry Wellington agent and let them explain to you how this 4.5% commission can work with no gimmicks, no hidden costs, and get the full value of, a full service agency representing you without, spending more than 4.5%.
I think that number one comes from people, and most people don't understand what they would be asking.
Right.
They don't know what questions to ask.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, there's not an interview script for real estate agents. So here's a list of things, questions you should ask the agents whenever they come in. I think the simplest way, if you're going to have a little runoff with the agents, is merely to ask the agents, bring them in, say, look, I'm going to have a couple of you come in, and I want you to make a presentation on why it should be you that we choose. That saves you a lot of effort. Let them put on the show and explain the benefits for the money that they're going to bring to the table.
And we never get to the second round of interviews if you're only picking one or interviewing one, do we?
Yeah, really. I mean, it makes it much simpler that way if you're only getting one. So a lot of folks do. They find, I think it's 50%. I got all these crazy statistics in my head. I think it's around 50% of people find their agent through a direct personal referral.
Yeah.
And that works really great. I mean, I had somebody call me yesterday and say, hey, I got this, I had this couple that we sold their house in short order, and they were very pleased. And they said, hey, this guy and gal from our church was asking us, they said, hey, we noticed that your house sold really quick. What was your experience with this Perry Wellington group? And they told them all about our virtues and handed our name over. And so they called me and said, hey, expect a call from these folks. They've got this, really, really gorgeous home in a very nice part of town that they're going to be looking to sell. They just bought a new place in Florida and they're moving. And you love when those referrals come through, but that's a lot of times how those direct personal referrals come in.
Yeah, and remember, don't be afraid to ask questions.
No,
whether it be with your doctor, your lawyer, your real estate agent, ask questions. And there are no dumb questions, are there?
No, there's really not. My son is a physician assistant. He does surgery, and he's recently graduated from school, which is pretty cool because he's got all the latest. He knows it's incredible, the wellspring of knowledge that this kid has. The money we spent on college was certainly worth it. But it's interesting, that today's consumer of healthcare spends a tremendous amount of time. He tells me about this. He said they spend a lot of time online researching their illness before they ever come in to see.
Yeah.
Get to see the doctor, come in to see me.
This is almost like real estate, isn't it?
Yeah. So you're seeing a lot of people. I was just reading an article this morning as to how these TV programs about real estate have really changed the business of real estate. I mean, the expectations are different. People have this notion that that their sellers are going to take this lowball offer that they've made, and that rehabbing and flipping a house is a piece of cake. Because it happens like half an hour on TV. I mean, you see a house go from if it only took half an hour.
Where's Ty when you need him?
Exactly right. So there's just a lot of things. The business is really, really different. I mean, you think. You joke around about the iPhone being 6 or 7 years old. So the smartphones really have not been around that long. And today's buyer, we have literally today's buyers in front of a home with an application like HomeSnap, taking a photo of the home, getting all the data on the home, and then clicking on a button saying, I want to see this house right now. Can you help me? And so a lot of, and we're going to be talking about this on the TV show on Friday, on WTAJ. We have a TV show on Fridays at 4:30, if you can get a chance to catch that. The interesting thing is we're talking a lot about part-time agents. And I'd like to bring them into the discussion too, because a lot of folks, they hear part-time and they think, oh, no, I need a full-time agent because I need somebody who does this all day long. And again, part-time agents, we have a number of part-time agents in our other offices. And what we find with the part-time agents, they take on as much as they can handle, and they're very focused on the business that they're doing. They don't have, many of them don't have 60 listings. They have 4 or 5. And they'll work very diligently with those if they're listing property. If they're working with buyers, they're one of the best. They're one of our secret weapons, Paul, because they can show houses on the evenings and weekends.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. If, as an agent, you can get overwhelmed by your success.
You really can. I mean, you got to be very careful about one critical resource that you have, and that is time. You have to really budget your time and understand that time is a resource that you can't buy more of, and that you have to protect very carefully, because as you get busier as an agent, there's a lot of things that can pull you a lot of different directions. You have to be very focused. And the nice thing about a part-time agent is that they are very focused about what they're doing. They know exactly what their boundaries are and how much time they have, and they're very good at budgeting their time. And so you've often heard the phrase, I'm sure, that if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person, right?
Yeah.
Because busy people are good at managing a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And so a part-time agent has a lot of those same benefits because they are juggling a number of different things, and they'll take on generally what they can handle. And like I said, the best thing about my part-time agents is availability. We get people who want to see houses in the evenings and weekends. And frankly, there's a lot of agents that say, hey, that's, my weekend's my personal time. And again, I'm not painting with a broad brush. I'm not disparaging agents, but there are agents who say, look, I'm not, I don't work Saturdays and Sundays, or, that's just, or they put they have definite hours that they'll work. And again, I don't want to come off sounding negative here. It's just some people just say that they have boundaries on when they'll work and when they won't work.
You mentioned the part-time agent. What is there a typical occupation that shares with real estate, or maybe 2 or 3 that you've seen?
I think the biggest occupation we see that shares with real estate is motherhood.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of folks, a lot of mothers, parents that supplement their income with real estate, and they've got a lot of flexibility. They can answer the phone during the day. I mean, there's a lot of things they can do, and it's a great way to get a career started. So the nice thing about, when we talk about picking an agent, is a lot of agents that are really up-and-coming agents are the part-time agents of today, because they're looking to get their careers to the point where they can go full-time in real estate. Because frankly speaking, I mean, real estate's a full commission job. There's not too many people that can afford to start a real estate career when they without a paycheck. So you have to get in somehow. Right. I mean, where's the magical, the magical beans that, where's the money going to come from to survive while you wait for your first commission check or a sustainable income in real estate? I mean, I think it's almost necessary that you start out part-time.
So moms get into it that way, huh?
Moms, and I'll tell you, we have a lot of, I think if I think about the different people we have that are part-time, a lot of them are like field sales reps. That might be doing another sales job of some sort, that might be out traveling around, that have a lot of freedom. They may be making, sales calls or doing a bunch of work and doing well in their day job, and they start to moonlight, so to speak, with real estate because they have a lot of flexibility.
Wow.
Yeah, so we see that too. I'm trying to think of if there's any other characters out there that, probably maybe retail is another one. We get some people that are, work retail and then need to be able to make a transition out of that.
Over the years, I've seen school teachers get involved in it.
That's a big miss. We have a bunch of school teachers that work for us. Because they kill it in the summertime.
Oh, yeah.
They've got their summers off. And we have a bunch of school teachers now that I think about it. I forgot all. I mean, they're superstars because they've got great social networks.
Yeah, and they've got great communication skills.
You bet. And they're super organized. We have this one guy. His name's Dan that works for us, And he's a school teacher, and he's got the best color-coded filing system. Even though we're really electronic, he's got this incredible filing system. I saw his files one day. I was like, wow, you know, because he's got it all figured out. I mean, this is what he does at school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. You know, so that's something I had not thought of. I'd always, and I knew there were part-timers,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and like I said, I knew some school teachers that did it part-time, but I didn't know the advantage to the potential of having a part-time agent work on your property as your employee.
Yeah, and I can tell you, though, the flip side of that is if the house doesn't sell, the first thing that happens is it's the agent's fault because they're not full-time. And rarely that's the case. I mean, it's if the agent's not following up with you or getting back to you, that's a whole different issue altogether. But you know, if the house isn't selling, we need to go back to our why the house isn't selling script. And there's a lot of things in there. But school teachers are great. I mean, we've done really, really well with school teachers. And again, the flexibility and availability that the folks have is really a big advantage for our clients.
One of the things when someone will come into your residence to talk to you, if you go with more than one agent, I would imagine if you go with just one agent interview, it's not going to take long at all. But if they're in a comparative situation, they're going to say, if you're a baseball player, you're going to say, hey, I hit 300 last year. Mm-hmm. And if you're a real estate agent, you're going to say, statistically, I'm able to do this for you, and here's how I back that up.
Right. So the statistics in real estate. So let me tell you that if there's, what do they say, that it's easiest, there's some sort of phrase about lying with statistics. Just it's how you put them together, right?
There are two, there's the truth.
Right.
What is there? Lies, damn lies, and lying in statistics.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, so we know all of those little things. I think there's a lot of shenanigans you can do, and I'm not saying that real estate agents are playing games, but there's a lot of things you can do to manipulate statistics. So
you push what you can.
Right, and there's a couple of things that people like to pay attention to. One of them is days on market, and the other is list to sell ratio. So what did you list the house for? So if you listed it for $100,000, you sold it for $95,000, and you do that all the time, you've got a 95% list to sell ratio. You get 95% of your asking price when you sell properties. And so that's something you hear agents talk about a lot. And you hear a lot about days on market because agents like to say, hey, I sell houses in the lowest days on market in the market. Average sale price comes into it sometimes too. They'll say, hey, my average sale price is this amount of money. One of the things that's I think as a broker, I like to quote is average sale price because that's a hard one to manipulate. You can't manipulate the sale price of a property. It sold for this price one way or the other. I mean, there's not too much you can do. And I like to compare that a lot of times to the MLS or to the local market. So like I'd have to check in this in Cumberland, but I know in the Blair Bedford market, Perry Wellington sells houses. Last I checked, the end of July, we were selling houses about $22,000 higher than the average in the market. So that's a statistic that's very difficult to manipulate. Days on market we can manipulate. So we can actually put a house on the market and it doesn't sell for 180 days, and we take it off the market, we put it back on. If it sells in 10 days the second time around, we can claim we sold it in 10 days.
Okay.
Right. So there can be some gamesmanship in the days on market. You can, if you think this through, you could also manipulate the list to sell ratio, because if you had it listed for 100,000, we'll say you had it listed for 120,000, and it didn't sell, and you put it back on the market at 100,000, and you sold it for 95, it would make it look like your list to sell ratio is 95%, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there could be some manipulation of that. I'm not suggesting that anybody's doing anything, but I just want to make it clear that you have to be. What's going to be the true measure of success is the sale of your house.
Okay. If I'm selling my house in,
right.
So I would bring in maybe 3 agents. Mm-hmm. Would that be a good idea?
You would be the outlier.
I would be the outlier.
Yes,
from what I've learned, it would be a good thing.
Be a great idea.
Now, when they make their pitches to me, would it be right to go back to the other agents and say, hey, John here is saying that he has, he's selling houses in 4 days average. What do you say? You
Right.
know? To me, that would be how I would wind up with the best deal for me.
Right. Well, and the problem is there's not an official score. It's not like baseball where you can go to the box scores, right?
Right.
Yeah. So this is there's going to be some room for interpretation. So I would spend more of my time looking at what the marketing plan is.
Okay.
You know, when we're thinking about this whole process, I'd spend more time talking about the marketing plan. What are you going to do for me? Let's list the things and talk about your plan. Let's talk about your price that you think my house should be listed at, and what you think the chance of success is based on that, and what do you think the realistic price my house is going to bring. I would spend most of my time focusing on that. And then what's your net bottom line?
Yeah, and I guess it comes down to your need. If you have to sell a property quickly, I would imagine you may pick a different agent based on that qualification.
And I think the thing I would dig into is, why is that true? I would ask that question. So your days on market are half what everybody else's is, you quote. Explain to me why that's true. What's the magical, what's the secret sauce?
How do you get there?
Yeah, exactly. And so that gets back to the other point I made, which is, what's your plan?
Yeah.
Because I think that's going to be the key differentiator in the person who you use to sell your home.
Yeah, and you want to get along with them, but sometimes that doesn't work out. What do you do then?
Yeah, well then, I mean, you know, I can't give you contract advice, but I mean, it's like with anything else. I mean, if you're not getting along, you may want to figure out a way to part ways, because it's just not, I mean, you can wait out the contract term, obviously, but I can't tell you how to break real estate listing agreement. Google could, but I'm not, you know, I'm not able to give you advice on interfering with somebody's agreement.
I would think, though, that the agent probably would want to get out of it, too, at some point.
Perhaps.
You know, well, suppose it's a part-time agent. They got 5 properties there, and
Right.
This is taking up space.
Right. Well, I mean, if the agent's going to be quick to drop a listing that's not going to sell. If it's priced too high, for example, and the prospects of it selling, the agent's going to be eager to drop a listing, I'm sure.
I would say in these interviews, it's also important to listen and don't be afraid to be Columbo.
Exactly right.
I got one more question
That's one of
for
my
you.
favorite things. Yeah, there's one more question.
Yeah.
And Columbo always had that one last question that he wanted to ask. It was really the question, right? That was
Yeah.
always the question he wanted to know the answer to. And after you're completely disarmed, he's ready for that last question.
All right. Yeah, well, that's what we've done today. We've kind of talked you into maybe doing a little bit more homework before you make a decision on who you pick
You bet.
as a realtor. Adam, tell us how you get a hold of Perry Wellington.
And locally, and I usually have my paper here to remind me of the phone numbers, 240-979-4660 is the local Cumberland number. If you need to get a hold of me personally, you can always call me on my cell phone at 814-934-5246 at Perry Wellington.
Okay. And if you want to see us on TV, how do we do that?
Yeah, so you're going to go to our website, and I told Dick we'll give you a link, and we'll probably be able to get you on the CBC website too.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you very much, and have a great week, Adam. We'll talk to you next Wednesday at 12:30.
You bet, Paul.
One of America's great